3. And Qing of Luoyang during the Han Dynasty. And Qing, whose style name was Shigao, was the son of the Parthian king and queen, making him the crown prince. In his childhood, and Shigao was known for his filial piety and wholesome conduct, because he was clear about his aspirations and career and keen to learn. And Shigao mastered all disciplines, ranging from foreign canon, astronomy, and cosmology, to iatrology, thaumaturgy, and animal languages. Once, he saw a flight of swallows on his trip and then told his fellow travelers, "The swallows tell me that someone will deliver food to us." When this really happened an instant later, everyone was astonished. After this, his curious talent was brought to the notice of the public. In the western regions, although Shigao was a layman, he observed the precepts strictly. After the death of the old king, he succeeded to the throne, and experienced the full extent of suffering and emptiness. Once the mourning period was complete, and Shigao abdicated the throne in favor of his uncle, and entered the monastic order to practice Buddhism, thoroughly understanding the Sutra Pitaka, with a specialization in Abhidharma. He recited and practiced sutras regarding meditation, savoring all of its subtlety. Then he started his journeys of transmission, traveling to various countries and regions. In the beginning of Emperor Huan's age, and Shigao came to China for the first time and demonstrated great brilliance. When given a slight hint, he could get dawning comprehension. He also grasped the sutra on the aggregates, realms, and fields, the great and small, 12 meditative approaches, and the 160 chapters. Bailiu Shipin. Earlier, based on the essentials of Buddhist teachings, the foreign Tripitaka master named Zhonghu, or Sangharaksa, redacted and compiled a 27-chapter work which Shigao analyzed and rendered into a Chinese version of 7 chapters. It came to be known as the Sutra of the Path of Stages of Cultivation, Dao Di Jing. In total, he translated 39 volumes of sutras and sastras. His logic was clear, and the wording was simple and smooth while being neither glozing nor rough, holding the readers spellbound. And Shigao understood all the natures and principles and was able to see through the conditions and karmic effects. He experienced many deeds and miracles that people could not imagine. And Shigao claimed that he joined the monastic order in his previous life as well. One of his fellow practitioners had strong aversions and was easily angered if the begging for alms from benefactors did not go as he wished. And Shigao, of the previous life, advised him against such behaviors, but the latter did not listen. 2 decades later, and Shigao bid farewell to this Dharma friend saying, "I will go to Guangzhou to unroot a resentment of last life. You grasp the teaching and cultivate it as well as me. However, your aversion would bring you an ugly form after this life. In the case of my enlightenment, I will free you from suffering." Then, he arrived in Guangzhou whilst rebellion was occurring, and met a young man on the road. The latter drew the sword the moment he saw, and Shigao, and said, "I really am meeting you here." And Shigao smiled and said, "I owe you a life, so I came from afar to give it to you. Your anger is the karmic effect of your last life." Afterwards, he stretched his neck waiting for the cut of the sword fearlessly. Thus, the bandit killed him, leaving the bystander crowds astonished on the road. Afterwards, his consciousness came to be the Parthian prince, and Shigao of present day. Then, and Shigao visited China to preach the Dharma while the Guanluo I areas rose in revolt at the end of Emperor Ling's reign. Because of this, he moved to the south for Buddhist transmission and said that he should pass by Mount Lu to free his old fellow practitioner. he finally arrived at Ganjing Lake Temple, a place where the prayers were well responded. Even though different businessmen prayed for opposite wind directions, all boats could sail smoothly through the different currents. Once, a man asked for divine bamboo on the hill and took it without the temple deity's permission. His boat capsized immediately, and the bamboo that he cut reappeared in its original place. Since then, travelers regarded in awe and venerated this deity from afar. Over 30 boats and ships came along with Inshigos, and the people offered sacrifices to the deity for blessings. Then, the deity sent a message. There is a Sramana on one of the boats. Please request his presence in the temple. The travelers were surprised and hence invited Inshigao to the temple. The deity told Inshigao, "You and I used to be fellow practitioners. I frequently practiced charity, but could not restrain my peevishness. In this life, I became the deity of Ganjing Temple, governing 1,000 square miles. Because of the donations I made, I received all sorts of treasures. But due to my aversion, I am a spirit now. Meeting a Dharma brother today, I have mixed feelings. This life cycle of mine will end soon. But my true form is ugly and long. If I perish here, these waters will be polluted. I should end my life in the great marsh to the west of the mountain. There I may then descend into hell. Please hold a Buddhist ritual for me and build a Buddhist stupa using thousands of bolts of silk as well as various other treasures. I gain, so I may be led to the Pure Land in my next life." And Shigao said, "I came from afar to meet you. Why do you not let me see you?" The deity replied, "My form is too ugly to manifest." And Shigao said, "Never mind. People will not be scared." Then, the deity came out from behind the shrine, in the form of a python so large that people could not see where its tail was. He wriggled to Inshigo's side, and the latter spoke to him in Sanskrit for a while. The python shed a flood of tears, and soon he disappeared again. And Shigao took the treasures, said goodbye, embarked on the boat, and set sail with the travelers. The python showed himself once again looking to the west. After the travelers waved at him, he was gone at last. Just in one moment, and Shigao and his companions arrived at Yuzhang, one he then Buatdong Temple using the deity's treasures. After Inshigao left Ganjing Lake, the deity died. That evening, a young man boarded the boat, kneeled down before Inshigao, and, after receiving a mantra and blessing from the latter, disappeared. And Shigao told the other travelers, "That young man was the deity of the temple. He has finally rid himself of that ugly form." Since then, the temple's miraculous responses to prayers no longer arose. Later, some people found an extremely long python's body, which was multiple miles in length, in the marsh to the west of the mountain. This place is now Snake Village in Zunjiang Prefecture. 2 And Shigao later arrived in Guangzhou, looking for the young man who killed Shigao of his previous life. The young man at that time was still alive, and Shigao came to his house and told the man about the killing, its cause-effect, and the conditions from beginning to end. Both were glad that they could meet. And Shigao then said, "I need to go to Kuai-ji 3 to receive another karmic effect." The Guangzhou man finally believed that Shigao had unusual powers, so he provided funds generously and traveled to Kuai-ji with him. Once they arrived in Kuai-ji, they encountered a fight at the local market, and Shigao was accidentally killed by a strike to his head. Since he saw these consecutive karma effects that were predicted by Shigao, the man from Guangzhou began his Buddhist cultivation earnestly. He explained the whole story to the local people, who were sad about the death, and were convinced by the Buddhist cause-effect principle in past, present, and future lives. And Shigao was a child of a king, so the people of the western regions call him Marquis to this day. Indian people claim that their books are heavenly literature, and their language is the heavenly language. The texts are abstruse and immensely different from the Chinese language. Translation works from long ago contain a great number of mistakes, but Shigao's doctrinal translation was the best. Daoan indicated, if we could ask questions in front of an ancestor, it would equate with seeing the saints, which is impossible. For people with generations of great virtues, we can only praise and recall their deeds and merits. I have explored and collected various texts and annotations. I have also found some discrepancies in the records regarding Shigao. In the collation and redaction of different versions, some records could have gone missing. Nevertheless, laissez-faire would leave the errors and eventually falsify the truth. Thus, what I will do here is list the different versions and records. This is a compromise but also might be a better way to produce his biography. In the scriptures catalog by Daoan, it reads that Shigao translated over 30 scriptures between the second year of the Jianhe period during Emperor Huan's reign, and the years of the Jianning period under Emperor Ling. According to the supplementary biography of Shigao, in the late years of Taikang period during the Jin dynasty, a monk called Marqian came to Songyuan. After he completed the textual translation, Shigao sealed the documents in a casket at the temple and told the residents to open it in 4 years. In the late years of the Wu government, he came to Yangzhou, had a case of cargo sold, and bought a slave named Fushan. Shigao said, "This is my virtuous friend," and brought him to Yuzhang. After freeing the Ganjing temple deity and building a Buddhist temple and stupa for him, Shigao was stabbed by Fushan between his ribs and died. Then the people in Songyuan opened the sealed casket. The writing in the casket read, "The one who follows my religion is a layman named Chen Wei. The one who preaches the Chan scriptures is a bhiksu named Senghui." The day the casket was opened was the 4-year anniversary of its sealing. In addition, the Jingzhou records by Yu Zhongyang depicts the story in the following way. In the early years of the Jin dynasty, a monk named Shigao freed the temple deity at Ganjing. He then built Beima Temple with the treasures from the deity at the southeastern corner of Jingzhou city. In the records proclaiming manifestations by Lu Yiqing, the prince of Kong in the Lu Song dynasty, it states that the grand python died in the late Wu dynasty. In the stupas and temples records by Tanzong, it says that Wagon Temple at Danyang was built by Huili the Sramana during the reign of Emperor Ai in the Jin dynasty. It was then renovated by a bhiksu named Shigao. With the treasures left by the deity of Ganjing Temple. Since Daoan had reviewed and collated various sutra translations, his narrative must be correct. From the second year of the Jianhe period under Emperor Huan until the late years of the Taikang period in the Jin dynasty, 130 years passed. Shigao's life would need to have been extremely long to coincide with the descriptions in the supplementary biography of Shigao. However, this is not the truth. Why is that? In the preface made by Kong Senghui for the Sutra on Mindfulness of Inhalation and Exhalation, he indicated, this sutra had been translated by Shigao and was unknown to the world for a long time. Han Lin of Nanyang, Wen Dai of Yingchuan, and Chen Wei of Kuaiji are 3 virtuous men, pious and earnest in Buddhist practice. At that time, I requested guidance from them, and then Chen Wei explained the meanings and significance of the sutra while I facilitated the discussions. Kong Senghui died soon after this in the first year of the Taikang period in the Jin dynasty. He already noted that this sutra remained unknown long after its translation. Furthermore, the words in Shigao's casket explain, "The one who follows my religion is the layman named Chen Wei. The one who preaches the Chan scriptures is the bhikksu named Senghui." And since the Sutra on Mindfulness of Inhalation and Exhalation discusses the way of meditation, it proves that the casket's description is not false, as it shows that the two of them disseminated the religion following his death. How could they both be contemporary of Shigao himself? Also, the supplementary biography of Shigao states that the one who preaches the Chan scriptures is the bhikksu named Senghui. Since Kong Senghui had died in the first year of the Taikong period, how is it that Shigao lived in the late years of the Taikong period? It is clear that some narratives in the supplementary biography of Shigao are self-conflicting. There must have been one book that incorrectly indicated his early years in the Jin dynasty, and then later authors claimed other dates, such as the Taikong period or the end of the Wu government. Consistency in certain parts and contradictions in others led to utter disorder. Without authentication, knowing that the placement in the early Jin dynasty was already mistaken, the description by Tanzong that Shigao came and built temples in the age of Emperor Ai during the Jin dynasty would be a further misfire.